Journey to Un'Goro is here. It's a new year for Hearthstone, and that means a bunch of new stuff is coming. And I wanted to do a quick video just to get you all up to speed in case you've not been keeping too close an eye on things. So what's happening? First up, we're entering the Year of the Mammoth. You might remember last year they introduced Standard with the Year of the Kraken. That was for the old gods, of course. Now with Journey to Un'Goro, kind of a prehistoric theme, it's the Year of the Mammoth. That means old sets are rotating out. Blackrock Mountain is gone, the Grand Tournament is gone, League of Explorers are gone. All those cards are out of Standard. They can now only be played in Wild format. It's also worth noting that Arena has now moved to Standard, so if you play in Arena, you won't see any of those cards either, as well as any cards that were older than that from past expansions. Additionally, a few classic cards from the original Hearthstone set are being moved into the Hall of Fame, retired from service if you will, so again, you'll only see them in Wild. So Sylvanas is gone. Blizzard said they wanted to introduce more powerful death rattle mechanics and couldn't really do so with her there because it would have comboed too strongly. Azure Drake and Ragnaros are both going. Both of them kind of became staples at their mana slot. 5 mana you almost always put in Azure Drake, and similarly at the top end with Ragnaros. So they're gone, they've seen too much play, it's a chance to try out some new stuff. Power Overwhelming is gone. I didn't think Power Overwhelming was that strong, and I played a bunch of Zoo recently, and it is quite strong, and it does end quite a lot of games suddenly. Also, Warlock relies a lot on classic cards, and Blizzard said they want to encourage experimentation. Ice Lance has also been taken out. Freeze Mage is a deck that's been around for ages and uses lots of classic cards as well, but also apparently Ice Lance prevented them from putting in some spell damage and duplication mechanics because it comboed pretty potently with those. So hopefully we'll see some more of those going forward. And finally, Conceal is going. Miracle Rogue's been a thing for a long time. They didn't want to blow up Gadgetzan Auctioneer because it does some cool stuff, but they felt that Conceal made it too non-interactive. You put it down, you conceal, then next turn you get to go off. Now you have to be a little bit more smart with it, but you can still do Miracle Rogue, you can still use Auctioneer and Druid, so there's plenty of potency there. And finally, they've added a new rogue hero. It's Maeve Shadowsong. It's a rogue, and to get her, very simply, you just win 10 matches in standard, ranked or casual play when the new set comes out, which it is now, so go out there and play some matches, get yourself a new rogue hero. Easy to do. So that's the rotation out of the way. On to Journey to Un'Goro itself. What's new here? Well, first up, we've got a new tribe, the Elementals. Now, a lot of old cards have had the Elemental tag added to them. You remember they did this with Totems a while back. Now they're doing it with Elementals. So a bunch of them are fairly obvious. Fire Elemental, Water Elemental, Earth Elemental, obviously. But also cards like the Ragers, cards like Ragnaros, who you're not going to see, but is an Elemental if you're playing in Wild. And also Alakir, adding to the Elementals, and there's a bunch of new Elementals in the new set. But critically, there's also a bunch of cards, some of them Elementals, some of them not, which have this effect that they trigger if you played an Elemental on the previous turn. So if you played one on turn 5 and then on turn 6 you drop this card, it's going to do something a little bit different, something a little bit stronger. So you want to chain them together, you want to curve out Elemental after Elemental each turn. And obviously the more of them you can, the more times you can play Elementals into Elementals, the better it's going to be. Sometimes you're going to have effects which don't come on an Elemental and they'll break your chain. So watch out for that, but it's going to be an interesting way to build your decks. Additionally, there's a new keyword. The new keyword is Adapt. Now, Adapt mostly comes as a battle cry, but it is in a few other situations or on a few spells. And when you adapt, it's going to give you a choice of 3 buffs for that minion or the minions in question. And you get to choose those 3, much like you would with Discover, but it comes from a pool of 10, and the 10 adaptations you can choose from, of which you will be offered 3, are +1/+1, +3 attack, +3 health, Divine Shield, can't be targeted by spells and hero powers, Wind Fury, Poisonous, Taunt, Stealth until the next turn, and Death Rattle summon 2 1/1 plants. And just a quick aside, Poisonous is a card text they added fairly recently. It basically replaces the Patient Assassin style effect of if this deals damage to another minion, it destroys that minion. So it's basically an instant kill, it's Death Touch. Just bear that one in mind. And finally, one more new mechanic to talk about, which is quests. And quests are legendary spells, which we haven't seen before. There's 1 for each class, so 9 in total, and they all work in much the same way. They all cost 1 mana. They will always start in your opening hand if they're in your deck, which means you'll draw them as one of the 3 cards you draw at the start of the game. You can mulligan them away, but you probably won't want to, because they're 1 mana, you can always play them on turn 1. Once you've played them, they pop down on your hero portrait, much like secrets do, and then there'll be a little counter next to them. And as you complete the task on the quest, the counter will fill up, when it reaches its maximum number, the set number on the quest, you'll receive a reward. And the reward is either a spell or a minion that does something incredibly powerful. And I think the best way to explain it is just to go through them all individually and just talk about what they do. So let's just go through class by class and see what the quests are about. So first up is the Mage quest, Open the Waygate. And once you've played it, you have to cast 6 spells that didn't start in your deck. So that means cards from things like Babbling Book, Primordial Glyph, Kabbalist Tome, works with Elise, or Kazakus, or Archmage Antonidas. Anything that says created by other spell or other minion, that will all count. And even if the card started in your deck, the new ones that were created will count towards the quest. So it doesn't matter if you've got fireballs in your deck, the ones that Archmage Antonidas creates count towards Open the Waygate. And once you've cast 6 spells, Time Warp is put in your hand. What's Time Warp? Well, it's a 5-mana spell that lets you take an extra turn. That's right, just a jump to the left and then a step to the right, and you get to take another turn. And be sure to pelvic thrust your opponent because it really drives them insane. Now, this is going to be great for setting up some really interesting combos. For the obvious kind of way to go is to have the giants, so you'll go low on health and drop Molten Giants, or just have played a load of spells, which you have to do for this quest anyway. Then you drop the Arcane Giants, take an extra turn. Even if you just throw down 2, you can do that for under 5 mana, 2 Arcane Giants, Time Warp, take an extra turn, next turn, you Alexstrasza them, and then you kill them. Easy to do. You might want to use Ice Block, and then play your Time Warp after the Ice Block has gone off, so that you can use Molten Giants. Also worth noting though, you can use this to get around an opponent's Ice Block, because you can hit them, pop their Ice Block, Time Warp, and then you get to kill them next turn. Fantastic. Seems like a pretty potent card. We'll see how it pans out. On to the next one. So the Hunter quest, which is the Marsh Queen. And the quest, once you've played it, is to play 7 1-cost minions. A little bit weird, because you can't play one on turn 1, but after that, as many as you like. And you do have to play them from hand. It's not summon, so you do have to play 7 1-cost minions from hand. And once you've done that, you get Queen Carnassa, who's a mighty 5-mana 8/8 beast, a dinosaur with the battlecry shuffle 15 raptors into your deck. And these raptors aren't just any raptors, they are specifically Carnassa's Brood, a 1-mana 3/2 beast with the battlecry draw a card. So once you've got these in your deck, you can just play one, draw another, play it, draw another, and just cycle out tons of 3/2s. So the question is, do you fill your entire deck with 1-cost minions and rush out Queen Carnassa as quickly as possible, and then risk having a bunch of 1-mana cards in your deck that won't cycle out the way Carnassa's Brood does? Or do you want to slow play it, only run just enough 1-mana cards, and hope to go for the long game? Thankfully, there are also some great 1-costs in Hunter right now that have been added, such as the Jeweled Macaw, which is kind of like a web spinner, but it works on a battlecry instead to give you a random beast, and that seems pretty strong. And also the Raptor Hatchling, which is a 1-mana card that puts another 1-mana card into your deck, which is pretty fantastic as well. So great ways to complete this quest too. Onwards to the Paladin. The Paladin quest is the last Kaleidosaur, and the quest, once you've played it, is to cast 6 spells on your minions. And this means, buffs. So we're looking at a lot of the blessings, Blessing of Might, Blessing of Wisdom, Blessing of Kings, the Silver Moon Portal perhaps, and of course the new card, which is Spike-Ridged Steed, which is a 6-mana card that gives you +2/+6 and Taunt, and then when the minion dies, you get another 2/6 with Taunt. Seems pretty good to me. Now, the problem here is, of course, buffs haven't traditionally seen too much play, but maybe this is a way to do it, because once you've done the quest, you get Galvadon. And Galvadon is a 5-mana 5/5 beast with a battlecry, adapt 5 times. Now, we talked about adapt earlier. It's that new mechanic that lets you pick a discover style buff from 3 options out of the 10 possible ones. And 5 adapts in a row is pretty strong. It seems like the adapts, generally speaking, get better the more of them you can do. As you start to stack them up, it removes the variance of getting 3 slightly rubbish ones for your minion and gives you a better chance of getting some real powerful things. So here you can get the Dream, which I guess is the 14/5 stealth Wind Fury. Then next turn you just kill them straight to face. You get a 9/9 Taunt that can't be targeted. You get a 6/12 Taunt with Divine Shield. You get an 8/8 Wind Fury with Divine Shield that can't be targeted. There's plenty of incredible options for Galvadon. The question is whether playing buffs is going to be viable enough to get your hands on the last Kaleidosaur. The Warrior quest is Fire Plume's Heart, and it asks you to play 7 Taunt minions. Seems pretty straightforward. Kind of a shame that the bolster deck seems like it's about to finally happen now. just as Bolster rotates out of Standard. So sadly, that's not going to be seeing play in this Taunt deck unless you're in Wild. But once you've played your 7 Taunt minions, you get Sulfuras, a 3-mana, 4/2 weapon. With the battle cry, your hero power becomes deal 8 damage to a random enemy. That's right, it's the Ragnaros power, but in fact even better because you don't have the drawback of having to be Ragnaros and have only 8 health, so fantastic. It's a great finisher. The question becomes, do you want to play tons and tons of Taunt minions in your deck and really focus on getting Sulfuras early, or do you want to take it slow? Do you want to play the kind of control warrior that really draws the game out to the last sort of 10 cards in hand, and then eventually you play your 7 Taunt minions, and then Sulfuras kind of becomes your win condition in those control matchups. It seems pretty good. You know, you can just not play Sulfuras. If you're up against aggro and you really need to have that armor coming through, you can do that just to keep you alive, just keep you on the edge. If you're in a control matchup, then obviously Sulfuras' hero power is going to be fantastic, and it synergizes pretty well because the taunts can protect you as you're battering down their minions with the hero power. Fantastic. So on to the Druid quest, which is Jungle Giants, and it asks you to summon 5 minions with 5 or more attack. Pretty straightforward really, and summoning rather than just playing means that you can get it off multiple things. You can use a card like Menagerie Warden, which counts towards the quest itself by being 5 or more attack, and also will count a second time if you use it to bring in a copy of another minion that's 5 or more attack off your board. What do you get once you complete Jungle Giants? Well, you get Barnabas the Stomper, a big old 5-mana 8/8 fella who reduces the cost of minions in your deck to 0, so they're free for the rest of the game. Fantastic. It's going to allow for some real weird combos, I think. The only question is whether there'll be enough draw in Druid to make it viable. You know, if you're still only playing 1 card a turn, it doesn't really matter that they don't cost anything. But, you know, Barnabas' stats are strong enough alone that it might be good enough just to play anyway. There's plenty of good cards in Druid that cost 5 or have 5 or more attack. You know, you've got the Elder Longneck and the Shell Shifter in the new set. You've got the cards like the Ancient of War and Dark Arakoa from Old Gods. There's plenty of options there. It might just be good enough just to run, just to go, hey, I got a 5-mana 8/8, and hey, it's free later. Maybe that allows for some incredible combos. We can see. Anyway, moving on to the Rogue. So the Rogue quest is the Caverns Below, and it tasks you with playing 4 minions with the same name. That's a really interesting idea, something that doesn't happen naturally in Hearthstone. Obviously, you only have 2 copies of a card in your deck, so how do you play 4 copies of a minion with the same name? Well, you're in Rogue, the obvious options here are stuff like Shadow Step, Youthful Brewmaster, Gadget Zan, Ferryman, all those usual suspects. Also, you've got stuff like Mimic Pod, a new card which lets you draw a card, add a copy of it to your hand, or Thistle Tea, which does the same but it gives you 2 copies. The problem here is, of course, that these just draw cards from your deck. They don't explicitly draw minions, so you might end up drawing a spell that kind of ruins your plan. But there is a new card, Igneous Elemental, and another one, Firefly, which both give you a card called Flame Elemental. So if you run 2 Igneous Elementals and 2 Fireflies in your deck, you can theoretically get 6 Flame Elementals in your hand over the course of the game. And they work really well with the reward, which is Crystal Core. And Crystal Core is a 5-mana spell that makes your minions 5/5 for the rest of the game. So whatever you play after the quest has gone out, whatever's on your side of the board is 5/5. And that's great with the Flame Elementals you have left over because they're now 1-mana 5/5s. Any other cheap minions you've got, 1-mana 5/5, 2-mana 5/5. Most of the Rogue cards tend to be under 5/5, so this is actually pretty strong. It's a bit weird because it's kind of a really simple reward for what's possibly the most complex quest, but I'm interested to see it in action. On to the Charmin quest. Unite the Murlocs. Very simple. Summon 10 Murlocs. Easy to do? Well, maybe not as easy as you think, but pretty straightforward to do. Murloc decks tend to want to pour out Murlocs anyway, so this fits in pretty nicely. It's summon, not play again, so that means that the Finger package works because it brings out cards onto the board. That still counts, it's still summoning. Also works with Call in the Finishers, that spell which summons 4 1/1 Murlocs. Nice easy way to get some quest completion, and once you've completed the quest, you get Mega Fin, a 5-mana 8/8 Murloc who fills your hand with random Murlocs. That's like draw 10 cards if you play it at the right time. And it's a really interesting idea. I think it's maybe the perfect fit for Murloc, because the problems with Murloc decks is they tend to run out of steam. You know, you kind of spam out minions early on, and then you go, you know, they've controlled me just enough. I've run out of steam. I can't get Murlocs out on the board quickly enough. I've run out of stuff to do. Suddenly, wham! A handful of Murlocs. One of them's an 8/8. You play him out, and then you've still got a few more mana to drop some other things to buff him up. And it could be exactly what Murloc decks need, the perfect finisher. Moving along again, we have the Priest quest, Awaken the Makers. It's a nice simple one yet again. Summon 7 Death Rattle minions, and again summon so you can pull them in with cheeky priest spells. Stuff like Resurrect will work for this, of course. N'Zoth will work if you haven't already finished the quest by that point. That will probably get it sorted out, and it will earn you the reward Amara, Warden of Hope, a 5 mana 8/8 with Taunt, who sets your hero's health to 40. So, the first time we've seen your health pool getting bigger in Hearthstone. Before that, it's never been able to go above 30 without using armor. So now, set your hero's health to 40. Very exciting. Death Rattles are pretty straightforward to include. With Reno moving out of standard, rotating away, Amara kind of functions as a replacement, a way to heal back up to full and make aggro decks very, very sad. It doesn't really help you win in the same way that a lot of the quest rewards do, but the Priest benefits from the game going long and from having being able to refill its health pool, so it kind of works in the way that the Priest would want to do anyway. The Priest tends to be one of the strongest classes in the very long late game, so having a card that lets them get to that late game a lot easier is going to work in their favour. And finally, onto the last class, the Warlock. So the Warlock gets Lakari Sacrifice. Another very interesting idea. Discard 6 cards, says Lakari Sacrifice. Again, something that doesn't happen very often. Like, discard lock is something that people have played with for a long time, but no one's really made it work in a competitive sense. Now there's real good reason to, because if you can pull it off and discard 6 cards, you're going to get the Nether Portal, a 5 mana spell which opens a permanent portal. It takes up a slot on your board. It kind of looks like a minion, but it's not targetable, it's immune. It just sits there forever, and it summons 3/2 imps either side of it at the end of your turn, every turn, forever. That's infinite value. That's 6/4 stats across 2 bodies for free every turn after you play Nether Portal. You know, that's pretty comparable to the Jaraxxus Inferno, which is a 6/6, but you have to pay 2 mana for that. These are just free, and they just keep coming forever and ever and ever. Now, it does encourage discard lock. There's a few new cards that work well with that as well. The new legendary Clutch Mother Xanthus, the Lakari Fellhound, the Cruel Dynamancer. They're really, really pushing discard lock. They've been doing this for a while now, but it seems like this is their final, okay, can we get this really over the line? We'll see if it works. There's a lot of potency here, and, you know, hey, if those cards don't really suit it, how about just building a standard Warlock, and then you throw in Deathwing, and then at the end of the game, you bang away your hand, and the next turn you got another portal, and that kind of accounts for the fact that Deathwing's got rid of everything else you've got, you know. You discard your hand with Deathwing, but then you get the Nether Portal back, you can play it next turn, and you'll be able to keep filling out the board, and don't have the normal downside of Deathwing, that if it gets killed, you don't really have any follow-up. So, a good idea. And that is going to do it. That's all the quests. We've spoken about the elementals, we've spoken about Adapt. That's Journey to Un'Goro. I'm excited to get into it. I hope you are too. If you've enjoyed this video, if it's been helpful to you, then be sure to leave me a like, drop me a comment, and let me know what you thought. Let me know what you are most excited about in Journey to Un'Goro. And that's going to do it for the video. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope you get hyped for the expansion. I hope you get good pulls in your packs. I hope you have a ton of fun out there, in Standard, in the Arena, in Wild, wherever you are. And I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers!